Hey everybody, it's Marty of the JavaScript Party and my buddy Rhett. It is Monday morning, March 3rd, 8:08 a.m. I have to start work in 52 minutes. I take my first course on my journey to become a paralegal in tonight at 7 o'clock. So in about 11 hours, I have been studying my book for this thing, Basic Bankruptcy Law for Paralegals, sixth abridged edition. So one thing I think it was kind of funny because they were like, "Oh, we want you to read the preface," but they only wanted you to read like the first 3 pages of the preface, and then there was 2 more pages. And at first, when you're reading it, you're like, "Oh, okay," because it's just describing like what's going to happen in different chapters. Okay, this isn't. But then it goes into like a bit of a rant, is what the best way to describe it, where it just basically says that as of, I believe it was 2019, there's no it is absolutely unarguable that the entire bankruptcy code is designed primarily with a primary focus on collecting money. It's no longer highly focused on sort of it's not consumer. It's not, the whole system isn't really designed for consumers. It's designed for debt collectors. It's more, that whole system is just to try to figure out how to squeeze more money out of the person who owes money, not about trying to relieve that person who owes money from stress and the sort of the responsibility of paying the debt. So that was interesting, and I do think a lot of people today may have a bad. They think that bankruptcy is something that it isn't. But I do think that if you execute your rights in an effective way, and if you know what you're getting into, you probably will be a lot better off. And I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm getting ready to really understand the first thing. I definitely want, if I were to ever work in bankruptcy, which I don't think I will. I think I'm way more interested in like state stuff, not federal stuff. But until you apply a certain paper, it's the state stuff that matters. But I think for the vast majority of bankruptcy, it's all about federal, and I'm more of a state. I'm more interested in state. But I do plan to be like, I would probably be more consumer orientated, trying to help consumers. But for the fun stuff, and that's coding. The coding stuff, we have gotten, this is video 67. So that means we've done 66 episodes or sessions. All the coding is all done live in videos. I don't do any coding outside of that. So there's no, like, if I do for some reason, which I don't know that I've had to do it, but if there's just something that's just so obvious and I just think there's a good chance I'll forget to do it, if I don't do it, I might do it and then I'll explain it. I'll be like, oh, okay, I changed this while I was off camera. But for the most part, you should never see like suddenly the code is different. And I do try to explain every single line of code that I write, and that's as much for me to be be like understand things better. But so basically, right now, what we have is a component, and it accepts. Our component accepts a renderer. And I believe it's an ST renderer. And the difference between a renderer and an ST renderer is this is a 3 renderer that is defined by the ThreeJS API. This is an ST renderer, which is defined by me. And I had to separate things out. So I built another one last year, another attempt at building this out. But I found that they're very pervasive throughout all the ThreeJS API, and in very subtle ways. There's different ways that how I want to perceive a 3JS object or a 3D object and a 3D animation. There's slightly different ways that I want it to work than it works in the way that the 3JS folks set it up. So that's really the main reason the ST side exists at all. And ST stands for show time. But should be show space and time. And I just don't want it to be 4 letters. But that is the reason for that separation. And so we've sort of been morphing through, and what we have now is a single component that is called viz component. And it's very simple HTML. And I guess the best way to sort of visualize this is to go, and so basically this is app viz, and it takes a renderer ID. And then it knows how to go to the renderer and draw what needs to be drawn. And that's really all it knows how to do. So if you look in that code, there's really not a lot to it. It takes that ID, it uses the renderer service to get a copy of the render, the ST render. It also uses this renderer, and I don't know why we need an ST renderer. Okay, so the ST renderer has a concept of rendering, and I made it to where the ST renderer service does the renderings, so that in case I ever want to do something special to anything that gets rendered, I want to do it in, that would be an ST showtime behavior, not a ThreeJS behavior, because ThreeJS, it renders things. That's its job. It does a good job. This thing knows that it has a DOM element. It knows when the DOM element exists, and then it appends the renderer's DOM element. So I did think that I had sort of imagined that you could have a renderer render to multiple places, but you really can't, because it has this concept of a DOM element. So it doesn't render to the DOM element you tell it to. It creates its own DOM element, and then you append it to it. So I had like 5 of these, and I was telling it, and basically it would only show it in the last one, which does make sense afterwards. It was just a bad idea I had in my head. And so if I did want that, if I wanted to render the exact same thing in multiple places, that's something I would have happen in the ST side, because that's just not how 3JS works. And then on the ST side, maybe I would clone the DOM element, maybe, who knows, there's a million different things I could do to try to do that, but that is how that would work. The renderer itself, the 3JS renderer, has a set size function. I don't think that this is, let me go to the definition. I don't think that's something where I do a lot. Okay, so that is, built and defined by 3JS. So let me hit back. Oh yeah, and this is a 3JS render. I've gone back and forth. I almost feel like I should have put like TJS in front of these things, so that, because just now I got confused and thought that I was on the ST side. But if I'd have had it named like that, then I would have known for a fact that that was a 3JS thing. I don't know. Maybe at some point I will get annoyed enough to go back and redo everything redo everything with that. So if that ended up happening, then what we are doing right now, it would be what you would call debt, technical debt. But if we never ever do it, then we aren't creating technical debt. So the concept of technical debt exists if it's something that we're going to have to do in the future. I don't know. It would have been kind of nice for it to be TJS, but maybe it would have been more of a pain in the butt to constantly be typing TJS than it is to just say, hey, if it doesn't have an ST in front of it, it's a 3. So, yeah. But now it kind of, like animations, there is no concept of animations in 3JS, and I named it ST, and now that kind of is making me think, okay, that was the right decision there, because it makes it very clear that I'm not in 3. And then today I was thinking about, like, some of this stuff we build and it's not about 3, and then we would be able, probably, maybe, possibly be able, depending on how we do this, we'd be able to apply all that other stuff to a different third-party library, so maybe a D3 or something like that. Um, so, who knows? That's kind of a thought I had. But I think the next step is, right now I just have one in the app component. I just have one renderer, and I just like kind of name it renderer, like there's only going to be one, but really what I want to have is an array of renderers, and for those renderers to be uniquely rendered. So basically what I want in here is to kind of have a for loop that goes over and creates app vizzes based on the array of renders. That's sort of the next sort of milestone. But I don't want to just try to get there individually, so directly. So basically, I think the next step on the path to that milestone is to individualize, like have multiple renderers. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate this service stuff from this code that I did, and I'm going to rename this to 01. And then I'm going to come over here and just fix everywhere where that's broken. And the goal is to have a 02. That's the sort of what we're trying to do, and then have 2 of these up and just deal with that. But so that did break something, I guess. I'm guessing down here. I don't know why it wrote. So I need, if I'm going to have multiple, I need some way, and probably the array having a length would be, but for now I'm just going to make this 01 over here. In the markup I use 01. Okay, yeah, it makes sense that I would have to. So this is sort of a way that I'm doing it, that I am just using it so that I can mentally build out a bunch of fun. I can kind of not have to build as much of the overall abstract concepts at one time. All right, so 01 worked. So what I'm going to do now is try to, I need to redo this one to call it 01. And fix everywhere where it's 01. And hope that it doesn't break anything in the template. I don't think it will, but it could. It may. And hit save. So I think that's easy to understand. So what I'm trying to do is kind of take something that's a little bit more complicated and make it less complicated, and then in an attempt to get to a place where, now this should break something, but it doesn't look like it does, which then tells me that I probably don't need that. Okay, so that's good. So we're gonna get, I think I don't need this. I might need it in the template. I don't think I do though. Okay, so we did not even need that. So that was extra. So I think getting rid of that was actually worth this process. So now I want to do a 02. And I'm actually going to be very curious if this works. All right, so I should be able to then now have one with 02. It won't be, it doesn't have any animations applied, but it should render. And if it doesn't, then that'll be an interesting observation about the way all this stuff works, because technically all of this should be done before this template even begins to start to build. So we will, if it breaks, then that will sort of be a way for us to grow our brain. Okay, so now I think what's happening is inspect. think we have two of them. Yeah, we have, no? Yeah, we have two app vises, one sitting on top of the other. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to move it. I believe it's absolutely positioned. Yeah, so we have one that's sitting there and not moving, and one. So basically what I can do is, so that I don't have to go into the inspector, I can just say style and then left 200px. And this is just for the, this is just for, that's so weird. It always blows my mind when like some debug statement changes because of, like, literally all I did was add this style. So yeah, so now we have that. So now I think what we should be able to do, and actually I'm very curious about this, is I should be able to do this same thing for 2. And I saved it, but for some reason it didn't seem to take. So what I was expecting to see is 2 render 2 to become animated. 3. Okay, back to 2. So for some reason, renderer 2 is not doing its animations. Even though it has an animation, it doesn't seem to recognize that it has an animation. And that really kind of blows my mind, because I think it should be able to handle its animation. So something's broken. Let's see if there's anything in the console. Man, everything looks good in the console. I'm just for fun. I think what'll happen is the other one will be blank. It'll just yeah. So for some reason, number 2 is not being animated. I don't know why. That's weird. Okay. And literally all I did is in the constructor st render 2 I pass into, I add it to the second one, and then it doesn't. So next thing I guess we'll do is look into the actual viz component. Render. Trying to figure out where we add the, I think it's in get base renderer that we add the, I think it's in here that we actually do add our function that knows how to, oh, silly rabbit. That is really interesting. So this renderer ID 1, this should be 2. I don't know if that, yep. So that fixed the problem. I do not So okay, so there was something weird about that. Like it seems like that should not have made it not. What is happening there is absolutely like if I had 2 hours, I'm glad. I don't know if I'm sad or glad that I don't that this isn't a Saturday and that I don't have to go to work in 32 minutes because I think I could spend the next 2 hours understanding why what is happening when you do this, like what is actually happening behind the scenes to give us a non-animated. Oh, I could tell you exactly what's happening. See, that thing's going twice as fast. So basically, we ended up somehow assigning the both functions to this one. So now it's like, because I think if we change it to 2, and this isn't like an exhaustive understanding, but it does sort of make things, see how they're moving like half the speed now. So we ended up running that function twice, which is making it faster. So speaking of that, now that that's working, we can like say, instead of, we could change this, right? Z. And see how they're slightly, so you can kind of compare and contrast what it would look like if you had a Z. So I think I could just move this to 0 and I'll be like, okay, so this only rotates around the X. And then this one only rotates around the Z. And then we can have a little bit of fun. See, finally, I don't know why, but I'm very pleased that what I'm doing right now is just straight up fun. I'm just having fun now. I've worked really hard to get this thing to do stuff, and now it does stuff, and now I'm having fun. And that is the whole point to a side project, in my opinion. Because, I mean, the reality is that it's going to be very, very hard for you to ever really benefit in a big way from a side project because like so this is, I do X, so this is going to be, well, let's just go with this one, Y. And we'll hit save, and then we'll go ahead and add it to our template. It's going to be very hard. Like, I took a whole course that literally in engineering school, that the whole point of the course was to explain to you how you were never going to, like, if a corporation that you work for has decided that something you work on is theirs, there's really nothing you can do about it. They can just destroy you in court, and all of that. So, it's probably better just to work on stuff that's just going to be fun for you, that you're going to enjoy working on, in a sort of an open source sort of, and just sort of throw away just the concept of getting wealthy off of some side project that you work on. It's just too litigious. Our country is just too litigious, and the litigious side has so much power that so, but they can't ever take how much fun you had away from you, and they can't take what you learned away from you. If you're working on stuff and you're learning and you're just getting better at what you want to get better at, and you're having a good time while you're doing it, those are wins. But anyways, I think that is cool. I like this. I think it's useful to be able to see 3 things like that, and sort of have a demonstration of what rotating around the x-axis looks like, what rotating around the y-axis looks like, what rotating around the z-axis looks like. I could see that being a very, very useful learning tool, for someone like you're trying to give them a visual representation of that. You could maybe even have a fourth one that's rotating around all three axes. Where are we at time? 8:33. Yeah, I have time to do that. And you got to think about it. Like if someone is just like, hey, build this for me, you could, now that this is built out and that we kind of understand things, building something from scratch that would do this would be pretty simple. But basically what we did was we just did the requirements for it. Like now you can visualize and explain it. It would be very easy for a business analyst to go in and say, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we want and all that. But would this be the code that you would want to deliver for something like that? No, because it would be bloated. I mean, this would be tons and tons of stuff that you just don't need. So when I have 3 of these, probably want a semicolon right there. Nope, I don't want a semicolon right there. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So let's put a space in there to make that a little bit more understandable. So what we want to create is the third animation. Three, and we want to make this 05 up here. So we got our X, we got our Y, and now let's do our Z. Oop, Z. And then we want to push animation 3. So the third one, the first two are going to have 2, but it ignores one of them doesn't do anything because their values are set to 0. And then the other one, the fourth one, will have 3, all 3 of them. So you'll be able to see all 3 together. Okay, so obviously I made some sort of error by adding an additional. So I added another function to that one. And again, that is a really good example of something that we just sort of innately learned just by doing. And it would be hard to articulate that if we didn't do it in this sort of slow, methodical way. We just have to kind of chalk it up to, I don't know, it's weird. And that's sort of like, unfortunately, that's sort of your job in a professional thing, is to get stuff done. And so then that one's going all 4 directions. So anyways, that is that. I think we are ready to, tomorrow I'll just make a for loop. I'll make a for loop and I'll have them all sort of mint out identical ones, and then maybe add some code to make this style calculated based on the index of the array. And that'll be very simple. And then now we have like this. And then what would be nice is, I think that would be a very good place to do a commit, and sort of make sure unit tests are still good. I don't think we did anything that should affect. We didn't change any of the things that need to be unit tested, so we should still get like 100% unit test coverage, and we shouldn't have to change anything in the end-to-end tests. But then we'll kind of decide what the next step is, because there are a lot of steps. Like, it's just going to randomly just put, so eventually it'll push these off, but maybe it should figure out how much space it is and then fit them, go to the next line and down to 200, update the style in that way, And then that probably, I guess, should be like a, I don't know how whatever it is needs to understand what else is on the screen and all that. And then we probably need to add left and right. Right now we have the width and the height, which we're not using, but we should have that. And then left and right, what the left position and right position is by area. And we need like a little 3 hamburger that pops open and places it and lets you add these things, and then maybe lets you, and then we need to do something to where, and this is not in order, but something needs to be done to where these animations are a little bit more formalized. Like maybe it should be add X rotation animation or add rotation, but then these all get passed in as arguments. But yeah, that probably needs to go in our animations service. That sort of logic probably needs to go in their email. It's kind of a different thing, but it's still animations related, so it'd be kind of nice to have all those together. And yeah, there's like things like that need to be done probably before we're done with the getting started branch. And then like another thing that we really do need to do is be able to just have more than just cubes. It'd be nice if we could have different things. And then maybe once we have our drop down, we'd be able to say, oh, add a cube, add a this, add a that, add a this, add a that. And then at that point, I think we could make a really cool, really cool end-to-end test, which would probably be good enough to be worthy of like a LinkedIn video, a video that I set up in YouTube, of course, but it's like a 30-second video or maybe an 8-second video that just shows Cypress in action doing its thing, making cool things with the tool. And that's that. Where are we at? We are at 8:41. I start work in 19 minutes. It's a Monday. It's going to be a long day. I don't get done. School is from 7 to 10 p.m. tonight. Normally I lay down to go to bed around 9 o'clock, so I'll probably be kind of tired. I am pretty studied up. I've gone over all the slides and I've gone over everything in the book. So it should be interesting for me, since like class can be so boring if you just don't know what's going on at all. It just sort of blurs. And then I'm a strong believer in flashcards, so I'll be actively creating flashcards during the presentation of the slides. So that should keep me very stimulated and all that. But then it'd be interesting, because if we actually go all the way till 10, then, trying to wind down and go to sleep at 10 o'clock will be interesting, to say the least. Maybe I'll just literally, normally when I lay down to go to sleep, it's like I'm asleep within 10 or 15 seconds of laying down. And I'm almost always convinced that it's going to take me a while to go to sleep, because for most of my life I've been where I can't sleep at night. But maybe for the last year and a half, I've been regularly sleeping 8 hours, and just I usually, when I'm sound asleep when my head hits within 60 seconds for sure of my head hitting the pillow. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes tonight, because this is a whole different experience. But anyways, happy coding, everybody. I hope everyone has an amazing week, and hang in there on Monday. We're on our 2-week sprint, and I'm in my week of a sprint that we don't deliver or pick up stuff. So it should be a fairly uneventful time for me, I hope. Anyways, happy coding. Bye.